Let's talk about the hiring round. David Culley being introduced by the Texans right now. He is a coach of color. The Jets hiring the first Muslim to be a head coach in the NFL, and then the rest are white men. What do you think of the current round of hiring in the NFL, Malcolm Jenkins?
I think it's to me it's been on par with the status quo. You know, every time we bring up these conversations and you know, talk about how many qualified African American coaches that there are out there to get opportunities, they just never seem to do that. You know, and you know, and it's unfortunate. And you see how many coaches that are white that get those jobs, you know, with little, with very little experience, with very little credentials, oftentimes coming from team or having a resume that isn't impressive at all. You know, it's one of those things where, even as a player in this league who's tried to be vocal on it and give my perspective on some of the coaches that have helped myself, like Aaron Glenn, who just got a D coordinator job, you know, in Detroit. I think could be a head coach in this league. Deuce Staley, somebody I've talked about, I think should be a head coach. You know, the enemy, somebody we've been waiting to get an opportunity, and I think, you know, it's really frustrating when you see how the situations play out. It just doesn't really seem like there's a concerted effort to actually go with the most qualified folks, but more so with who people are comfortable with, or, you know, kind of this good old boys club that is really hard to penetrate and get into.
So what's the answer? You know what I'm saying? So what would you say if you could, you know, have the commissioner's ear? Because clearly it is something that he wants to address.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest, Malcolm Jenkins, to try and change what clearly needs to be changed?
Well, like anything, right? When you want to change the outcome or change the landscape of an organization, you have to, and you want, especially when it comes to diversity, right? You want diversity within your organization and that to be a priority. Well, then you have to have a diverse group of decision makers. And unfortunately, when you look at the ownership and the decision makers around our league, there's very little, if any, diversity. And so we're expecting people who don't have a diverse, you know, who are not in a diverse, you know, group. We're expecting decision makers that don't have different perspectives to suddenly change their minds and hearts, and you know, do something that's been out of character for them for however many years they've owned these teams. And so, to me, I think if we want to be serious about having black coaches and more black GMs and things of that nature, I think we're going to have a serious conversation about diversifying what ownership looks like.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.